think to myself, what a wonderful world.
That means I may have to go back.
Yes. Yes.
If I say something was good, I might find myself wanting to go back to it again. But the reality was, that wasn't true, but I had talked myself into that story.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so ultimately it worked out for my good. It was a cleansing exercise. It's something that I still recommend. And when I work with ladies today, you got to count up the cost. When we talk about recovering and rebuilding, you have to count up the cost to rebuild.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you said something about recovering. I want to pivot. As you count up the cost of that, there's a couple things you mentioned in the beginning. There is recover, like almost like recoup what you've lost. And then there's recovering, like heal.
Yes.
From the process. And I heard them both in what you said. And I think when we first talked, my mind went to the healing, the recovering, convalescing, and that's my new big 50-cent word. I saw a James Bond movie and he was sitting in a lawn chair with a broken arm or something, looking over there, and he was like, oh, he's convalescing and such and such. And I was like, yeah, I want to convalesce in Belize or wherever, So,
yeah, right.
So anyway, as you convalesce after the divorce, you're healing after that, you're recovering. That's how I first pictured it, like being a person who actually took the time to do their healing work, right? Versus recover. Like it actually occurred to me when you were speaking, we've lost some things that we need to get back. Right. And I didn't even think of it that way when we first spoke. So now what's your take on how do you mean that word when you talk about recover and rebuild?
Yeah. And because I come from a lens in healthcare, right?
Yes,
I'm thinking about, when you break a bone, right? You got to find out, the surgeon first has to find out how you broke the bone.
Right.
Okay. Right. So when we talk about that whole process of getting out the good and the bad, we got to be able to account for what was good and what was bad. Okay. Yes. So bone is broken. Surgeon figures out how did you broke? You slipped and fell and now it's broke. Now we go get an internal look with an x-ray.
Right.
We see where were the breaks.
Right.
Was it one bone? Was it two bones? Was it an ankle? Where are the breaks?
That hairline fracture that, you don't even think that you have a broken bone. You can't even see. It's like, oh, it feels fine to me.
Yes. And then that determines what kind of surgery you need. Yeah. Do you need an open surgery? Can it be something he can just put a cast on that will stabilize you?
Yeah.
Right. And so determining what type of surgery or recovery you will need, and then actually going through that recovery process. So I was thinking,
hold on, I'm going to stop you right there. That was a huge thing. So what kind of surgery you need? So this is like, and I want ladies to really hear this. There are some of us, your divorce might have been amiable. Y'all saw this coming a long time. You worked it out and it was easy. It was emotionally painful, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And some of us are leaving volatile relationships. Y'all were arguing every single day, or as Jamie Foxx says, arguing. You were arguing every single day. The kids witnessed it. It's tumultuous. It's challenging. Then you've got another group that it was completely toxic or abusive. Right? You're with a narcissist, a codependent, some type of manipulator. And then you got the severe end where your life was at stake every day.
Imminent danger
every day. So you have this continuum where the surgeries are different for that. And there is no shame in needing more in-depth surgery on the one end where you need help from soup to nuts. You got to get out of there. You got to get out of there safe. You need a new job, a new house, a new look, a new name, a new everything. That's a different type of surgery than the person who is simply emotionally, and I don't mean simply as in it's simple. I mean, where they are is the emotional pain of that, and just the nuts and bolts of the transitioning out of it is very different from somebody who's going through physical, mental, spiritual anguish, career, family,
finance,
financial. I mean, there's no aspect of their life that is intact as a result of this marriage. So
yes.
That is hugely important to identify what surgery do you need? And if you don't know, this is where going to a coach or any professional, a counselor, even your spiritual person, somebody you can trust, you need somebody can step back and support you in that journey, because sometimes we just can't see it. So
absolutely. You describe it perfect. And so that's the lens that I look through. It's like, this is how I see it, right? In this my whole nursing background. But then, right, there's this recovery period. So now, depending on if you just had the cast put on that needed a little bit of support, you're just going to come back for a little follow-up visit, right? So that may be just your simple counseling, come back, check in with me if you need me, to now, if I needed to help you get out of this imminent danger and you need support mentally, physically, and spiritually, there is a part of recovery for you in that as well.
Absolutely.
So I try to help women look at it on a spectrum. Don't try to put yourself, if somebody just had needed a splint covering, but you needed the whole, like you say, nuts and bolts, but you trying to get the splint.
Right.
No. You don't need the splint. Right. You need the full, but someone has to sometimes help you see that, because you'll fool around and think, well, it's been 6 months or a year and I'm good. Right.
You're like, I can take this splint off. And a coach or a professional will say, you didn't need the splint. You needed reconstructive surgery and you haven't had it. So yes, you could take the splint off, but you're not even close. The splint didn't even do anything. It was probably more annoying than it was healing for you.
Right. You took it off too soon. You weren't ready for, and so this is where I believe as coaches too, we can help women, like somebody help you decipher, where are you in this whole cycle? And so you can get clarity about that and then determine, how do you move forward? Because if you don't have clarity about what is your very next step, like you're saying, if it is to just get out of danger versus if it's just to sort through, hey, I don't even know how to file divorce papers or whatever. Right.
That's a completely different type of issue versus somebody that is having a knockdown, drag out court battle, and there's kids at stake with the custody and et cetera, et cetera.
And you've been mentally brainwashed for years to believe you can't get out or that you can't, right? You might need some therapy to even understand that you can trust your decision making again.
Exactly. Or that you even can discern what decisions to make. I mean, I know if you're a person like me, every once in a while you watch these TV shows and you see these women basically have Stockholm syndrome coming out of divorce. And that's only extreme cases. But even in some of the other cases where there's just your average run-of-the-mill person and she's working and she's functioning, she will often say, and I've had clients say, I found myself having bought into some statement or theory that he made about me because he used to say it to me all the time and it was never true. Wow. And at the time he said it, I thought it wasn't true, but over the years, I guess they said it so much, I believed it. Now that I'm stepping away from it, it's taken me 6 months, a year, 3 years to realize that's never true. What am I talking about? I never liked or whatever. But for that distance for some people is shorter or longer, depending on how much time you spent in the recovery phase and whether or not you had the right surgery recommended. I mean, how many of us have been to doctors and it was like not the right procedure, or they misdiagnosed or just didn't have enough information to make the correct diagnosis. I don't want to say anything bad about our healthcare providers. Right. God knows the past 2 years, whatever you guys have done, I am grateful. That's what I meant to say earlier. Thank you for your service. I cannot tell you how many times I go in hospitals and I just go, thank you for your service. Like the military, I see military. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
I'm not standing on a wall holding a gun, and I did not have to deal with my life at risk every day on the front lines, serving and supporting people that needed healing and help. And I am grateful for that. But in sometimes in the midst, and also not even to put a further light on, how many of us go to the doctors and we don't tell them everything?
So they're having to do extra steps and extra labs to help figure out, or
trying to figure it out, and it doesn't add up. You see them trying to say, well, have you done this? Have you done that? And nope, I don't know what this is.
That's a whole nother area.
Tuesday. Okay, well, why don't you try this remedy and recommendation and we'll run some more tests. Meanwhile, the doctor
come back and see me.
This is perplexing. I don't get it. And you've not disclosed the big picture. And so they're operating, they're
guess what?
recommendations based on what you've communicated and said to them, not based on the truth. So you're
guess what?
Healing. Yes.
Your recovery and your rebuilding will take longer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so this is why the whole time heals wounds is, and I think you and I chatted about this, but
yes.
it just is a like chalkboard for me because it is just not true.
Yes.
It's not true. And yes. So even when we're talking about women who come out of divorces, and how about your identity? Who am I now?
Who am I? Yes. Who am I without my husband? Who am I if I'm not Mrs.? You know, some people got that MBA and an MRS, and the MRS is what define them. They done forgot about the MRS, the MBA, the BA, the RN. That doesn't define me. This MRS is what it's all about.
Come on. So we don't even know who we are coming out of these sometimes coming out of this. So you need to even recover that, your identity before, and your purpose before the divorce, because you had a purpose before. You had a purpose before. And so the divorce happened and you still have purpose.
Yes.
So how do we get discovering what is it that simply, like you said, what simple things do I like? What do I enjoy doing?
Yep. Do I even know, what was it? What was the Runaway Bride, whatever. He was like, you don't even know what kind of eggs you like. You like whatever kind of eggs.
Whatever he liked, you like.
Yeah, right. Whatever, that was also Coming to America. Whatever you like.
Whatever you like. Yes. And so you come out and you're like, I don't even know. What do I enjoy doing? Like how and so this is why it's so important, in that whole recovery process and journey, that you don't try to skip recovery. You don't try to skip the phases of recovery. You need every step of it, and depending on where you are. So that's why, that's the lens that I look through that helps me as I work with my clients to try to help them get through and bring it home so that it makes sense, as they're in that, in this journey.
I think that's a beautiful analogy. I'll also add one other thing. I once asked a dermatologist about procedures and plastic surgery and things. I didn't have it. I wasn't a candidate, guys, by the way. Very disappointed. But anyway, the question I asked was generic. How do you keep from, it was about a tummy tuck. And I was asking, they cut you from here to here. Isn't that like a nice scar? But then you see on TV, these people are wearing bikinis after this tummy tuck. And I'm thinking to myself, how is that even possible? And she says, it depends on how much rest you get during recovery. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, the people that really rest for the 6 weeks as we prescribe, their scarring is very minimal. But those go-getters and people that can't sit still and they get up after 2 weeks or they go back to work prematurely, their scarring is worse. And I was like, really? Yeah. So, and I've heard that many times before. So to your point, even about the proper diagnosis, if you don't follow the instructions after surgery and they fix your problem and you have a new lease on life and you've got new perspective, there's still some rest and recovery you need to do after the process. If you don't follow those recommendations from your coach or your counselor and create these new ways of being and pathways, you're still going to end up not recovering well, not healing well, because you didn't follow the instructions. You didn't give yourself permission to heal completely before putting yourself back into other scenarios out there that just basically tear your stitches.
That rip you back open again, right? Oh, you're hitting on it. Are you sure you're not a nurse?
No, I'm not a nurse.
No, I mean, because you're hitting it just right, Coach.
But as you're talking to me, it's like coming to me. It's just
download.
Like, yes,
and people don't get that. That is, and it's true. It is so true. The body has to have time to recover. Your mind has to have time to recover.
Yes.
All of the hormones and stress hormones that are going. I can remember, and I don't know if for you it's the same. I can remember there were some days I would come home and I would just be like, and my job was not necessarily stressful, but I would come home exhausted.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just mentally spent. But it was what I come to understand. It's all of the release of cortisol and all of those internal hormones that the body is trying to fight the grief and the stress and the angst and the internally.
Yes.
And so it's responding appropriately. But when you don't give it time to rest, you've got it in phase 10. Rest up. and eventually it's going to, and this is why 10 years from now, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, however long that you don't do the work, it's going to still be there revving your machine, you know?
Yes. And we talked about that too. And I had the same issues. It was different. I'm a person, I don't like anger a lot, like really, because I feel like when I go there, like I really go there. So I'm usually a pretty even keel person. But during this process, because I didn't express a lot of anger would get expressed. And how that would look for me is I used to call that, and so would sadness. I used to call that seepage, right? So I would be watching a commercial and then I would just like, oh, this is so touching. And I'm just starting crying. This is a iPhone commercial. It is not that touching.
Not that deep.
It's not that deep, but things would just touch me and I would just start crying. And then with anger, I remember, I used to get this all the time. Anytime things got physically hard, right? So if I had to like carry groceries or buckets or my baby's car seat or move a thing, and I'm in there, son of a, I'm just cursing a blue streak. I shouldn't have to do this. I didn't sign up for this. And I'm going off. And in some ways, you guys, it was really cathartic. Nobody was around when I did this. My kid wasn't around or anything like this.
Oh my
I had to
God.
carry the car seat. I would be nice and gentle, and then I would curse, bringing the groceries in when she wasn't around. But it was cathartic in that way. And on the downside, I shouldn't have waited to express that anger.
Yes.
I learned after a while when I got more into it, same as you on my own journey, that's when I discovered kickboxing, kung fu.
Yes, outlets.
All these outlets. I took a Wing Chun Kung Fu class, huge martial arts class, and the guy was like, "We all thought you were going to quit after one lesson." I was like, "Oh no, I am not quitting." I was working it out on that bag. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And they were looking at me, and I was like, "No, I'm with it."
You are so, and you don't know when those moments will come, but it's when you're doing something that you say, "Oh, I'm so," like when I went to the support group, I was like, I didn't even ask to be here. How did I get in a divorce support group? Like I was shocked every time, but it was 12 weeks. I'll tell you, it was 12 weeks and I made a decision for myself. It was like, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I don't care how hard this gets. I have to do this. And so every week I made a decision to show up, and I will tell you, like we started out, I can't remember, there was about 20, 25 people. By the time we finished, there may have been about maybe 10 because people gave up. They just said, I can't do it. I wasn't ready to face this. I didn't know it was going to get this hard. And really, again, the group leader's there, but they're not there to call you if you don't come to class. They're just hosting a group. And
you have to take ownership of to your point. Even a doctor will tell you, you have to own your own recovery period. They are there as healers, advisors, supporters, to use.
Get your discharge instructions.
They give you your discharge instructions. Yes. And they schedule your follow-ups. You can show up or not.
You're right.
They're not, you might get that reminder call, but if you don't show up, they're not going to call and be like, "Are you coming back?"
Hey, you forgot about your appointment? No, right? And so you're there now with a possibly deformed limb.
And you want to add another little layer on to your analogy there. You might have to pay for the cost of the visit, which means missing the visit costs you something when you don't follow up.
It's not free. It's still not free.
Skipping the recovery steps is not free. There is a cost to you. And even if you don't want to acknowledge it, you're still going to get that call. Well, you missed a visit. We want our $30 copay or whatever, the full visit, whatever they charge you for that. So missing a visit, a follow-up, all those people that dropped out, it came at a cost. It cost them something. Yeah.
And some of them had to come back again.
And start over. For some of them, You can't drop out and pick up where you left off. You have
and
to start all over
again.
Yes, you have to start
and
over.
So this is why it's so critical. And when I thought about it, when the Lord gave me the recover and rebuild, he gave it to me in that order. Because you have to recover first before you can rebuild.
Right.
You can't be out rebuilding anything if you've not recovered.
Right.
It's just that simple. So
I'm spending time on recovery because this is the place everybody wants to get to rebuilding. Because isn't it fun to build a house, get to lay the foundation and picking out walls and colors and get to redo your
it's all new,
haircut, get your manis and petties, start taking trips and like the rebuild. I'm going back to school.
I'm traveling again.
I'm traveling again. I feel like that's fun and everybody's willing to do that. The recovery piece, I feel like not so much. And I don't care what you rebuild. You're rebuilding on a sand foundation, a foundation made of sand, which means it's not stable. I just saw 2 articles on the Weather Channel, unfortunately, but young children who faced an untimely death because they were digging holes in the sand and the sand caved in.
I saw that.
It caved in. And the holes weren't even big. The point that they were saying is no hole or anything should be above your calves. And you shouldn't be digging in there anyway. And if you do, it's not to be because there's no foundation. Sand is unstable. And so we are so willing to get out there and start rebuilding, having not recovered. All of this stuff is on that sandy foundation. It's not stable. And when it crashes,
you won't know it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? You think I'm in a new relationship. Oh, we love each other and we're good. Right. Until you're triggered. And then the unhealed you comes out and could possibly destroy the relationship. Could be a very good relationship, but you weren't ready. Right. You weren't prepared to be in something that is sustainable because you're not recovered first. And so that's the way he gave it to me in the order. It's really important. But you hit on something about even the whole rebuilding. Literally today, I said, I need to do a video about women understanding where you are in your recovery and rebuilding.
Yes.
And thinking about in a neighborhood, a community of homes, right? And new builds, right? And you look around the corner and you see the Joneses over there. Oh my God, they're starting to put their walls up and they got, their foundations poured. And your house, you looking at, you got the plot of land. Right. But yours just says sold here with the address. Right. Okay, you can't start trying to put walls up. No, because the Joneses are doing that, right? Exactly. Your house is going to get rebuilt at the time it needs to be rebuilt. Exactly, and you're okay. You're okay. So you can't try to put the roof on something when you have not built the foundation.
Go by the roof. I saw these solar panels that I really want to pick out right now. Dude, you don't have any walls.
You don't have any wall. You don't even have a door to come in.
Well, I don't want them to sell them from out from under me. And this is what I really want. But and that's such an excellent point. I did a video on my Instagram about construction. And I was saying I love new construction. And it was a different reason, but the reason still holds. It was like you get to see nothing turn into a footprint on the planet. Right. Yes. So you go from nothing to seeing someone's vision manifested in real time. Yes. With all the bells and whistles and the glass and however it faces. Like in construction, there's no better way to see that.
That's so true.
It's just beautiful. But they're building a bunch of stuff where I live. They're also building townhouses. And to your point, your analogy is I watched them for months do nothing but excavate. They dug up digging holes. They put little flags. Then they took the flags out and put poles. Then they took the poles out and put a brick. Then they took the brick out and put the poles back in. Wow. Then they dug trenches around they spent so much time on that foundation. It felt like nothing was happening except digging and moving piles of dirt for like months and sticking little flags in for like months. You didn't see anything. And then one day you saw 4 pillars, and then you saw concrete, and then you saw walls. And when they got the foundation, the walls and everything just came up like this. Why? Because to your point, the foundation is rock solid. Whatever they did to that ground to unearth and prepare it, it was prepared for the foundation, and the foundation was laid and it was rock solid. So you cannot not do your work and then expect to get into the rebuild phase. Oh, it's great. I'm going to get married again. How many? And I have had women that do that. I used to be a dating coach. I started my coaching doing empowerment, and then I moved to dating, and I used to coach men and women.
Okay.
I tell you, the stories were basically everybody dated that same person they used to date, or they were married. They just changed the name, just
for sure.
Change the name because they hadn't done the work to get through. Why did they have those problems with the previous person in the first place?
It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. And so this is why I say, people say like time heals. I'm like, please don't believe that. But you hit on some, when you talk about the foundation, when you think about when they are starting to, they do survey of the land.
Yes.
Is this even good land to build on?
Absolutely. Right?
We're not even going to start building until we make sure the soil is good. Is it the right temperature? Is it the right soil?
Take a step back. Is this the right neighborhood? Is this a place where my building or this land will add or increase in value? It's going to add unto me and not take away from me.
Hello.
Right? So, I mean, even when as we're going there, like recovery, there's a lot that goes before rebuilding. You don't just show up like, I'm throw up a house, because you can. I'm not telling people you can't, but when you do, you get what you pay for, you get what you invest in. That quickness costs you at the end of the day in terms of your emotional health and well-being.
Absolutely. And then you get in your home and you start noticing the cracks.
Yes.
You start noticing things are shifting.
Yep.
You can't close the door because something has shifted.
Right.
So the door is no longer aligned, or you see cracks in the ceiling, right? This is what it looks like when you don't do your work.
Absolutely.
And so I know that women, are out there, and this is why my passion is to really help them understand that this is a must. It's not even an option. It's not an option.
No.
You can't afford not to. And that is, even if you don't choose to remarry.
Yes.
Because every woman, I came to understand, does not desire to remarry. And that's okay too. So, but now we got to get you learning to love you, right?
Yeah.
Learning to trust you, learning to trust the things about who are you, what,
Yes.
And so it's not for the purpose of remarrying if that's not something you desire. But if you do, but certainly learning how to be in relationship with you and appreciating you.
And you mentioned that the other day, so you don't become a bitter Betty, a negative Nancy, and then I threw in there, or a lonely Lord. Because I'm telling you right now, nobody wants to be with bitter Betty or negative Nancy. No. Not even your friends.
No.
Eventually they stop, and then you're like a lonely Lori, and you're like, where is it? I don't get
Nobody
it.
wants to hang out with me anymore. Why? Because you're going to start talking about Joe and all the stuff Joe did. And, and after a while, it just people stop listening.
You got a couple good friends that'll be like, look, Joe and you split 20 years ago.
Stop
you
it.
Stop talking about Joe.
Stop talking about him. He's gone. Yes.
And hopefully you have a friend that's really good and say, you've been talking about Joe for 20 years.
What's really going on?
And I love you, and you need to get some support.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something else going on that you cannot stop talking about this man, and it has been 20 years. Joe is married. Joe has 3 other kids. Joe has quit the country and is doing his thing.
But you're still stalking because you just want to make sure Joe is not living his best life. And I
was about to say, and the only reason that I, as your friend, know that is because you give me a play-by-play because you're still stalking Joe. Because I would not know anything about Joe except for your updates every month.
Okay. He's gone on. He has gone on living his best life. And you know what? It's without you. Okay. Exactly. But what you have to realize is that you have a best life too. So it's time for you to focus on you. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? So
I totally hear you. I had a really good friend, and he said, the best revenge is no revenge. Just live a good life. And I always thought that's awesome.
That part right there.
Just live a good life.
Okay.
Best
Because
revenge.
that takes work. That takes work to try to keep up. What are they doing? How are they doing? How come they're not mad? How come they're not calling? How come they're not? And you just keep yourself in this emotional, the hamster wheel, the emotional and mental hamster wheel.
Absolutely.
Trying to keep up with what this person is doing now.
Yes. So you can compare and contrast. It's actually not even for any other purpose other than to compare yourself and what you have to what he has now currently.
And why does it matter?
It could have been mine. It should have been mine. We could have been.
And why does it matter? You know what? It is what it is.
It is what it is.
And listen, ladies, we're saying this now. Both Coach Ivy and I, we had to do our work. We did. And I was just about to say, I'm not going to pretend I did not do that because I did. Absolutely.
I'm not going to pretend I was never there because I did, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't go, oh my, I can't believe, how did he get this and there before me and that? And I was the one that worked really hard and blah, 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 blah. And it's irrelevant.
It is irrelevant. And then when you recognize that you have to turn it back to you. And I remember my counselor saying to me, when you talked about the whole, I didn't sign up for this. And oh my God. She said to me, and I'll never forget it. She said, "You actually did." Yeah,
I know. I had a counselor tell me that too.
And I was like, "Oh," but it was a reality check.
Yeah,
that I actually did sign up for it. Why? Because I stayed in it as long as I did, and I did not. I thought, forgiving and loving and doing more work and me going to counseling by myself because God, we got to make this work and our children and the weights that we take on as women, right?
Yep.
And the job and the perceptions and I talk about mask, right? All the masks we start putting on, so that we can make sure people know that we're okay, because it's the I got it all together syndrome, I got it. I'm me. That would never happen. And the reality is, it did happen to me. And the reality is, I did make those choices. But it wasn't until I had someone help me walk through that to understand I did make those choices.
Yeah.
And why? So I can make better choices the next time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't help me make those choices when I've come out of something that I was making bad choices in. Somebody who's ahead of me or who's been through it needs to be able to help me see.
Help me see differently. Help me see what I can't see. I always say everybody has blind spots.
Yeah, everybody.
And then I go, and here's the thing about people. This is the best way I can explain this. People think like there's things I know I don't know, and I'm like, but that's not in your blind spot.
Yeah, yeah.
What you don't know is still a function of what you know. Because you actually understand and comprehend. I know I don't know astrophysics. And so I comprehend at a level, I don't know astrophysics. Now, I might have some other thing in my blind spot. That's something I don't know.
Don't even know.
That is the difference. And that's what a blind spot is. I really want to make that distinction for people. Because people will say, listen, I know I don't know everything, but I know what I don't know. Right? No, we're not, coaches and counselors don't work with what you don't know. That's a piece of the process. Right. Where the work is what you don't know. When you look back and you can't see that back corner right there.
It's there. Yeah, right.
That's what we're working on.
You can pull that forward.
But I feel, and you can feel, when you're driving, you can feel something is back there, but you can't see it.
You can't quite get to it.
Unless you do this, which you can't do all that. That's what a coach, a counselor, anybody, your pastor is there to support you because you don't know what you don't know is back there. Yes. That's where your work needs to happen.
That's where the unpacking comes, right? That's where and I describe it too. It was like I was walking around in the dark for a period of time. And me and my best friend, we talked because she got divorced about the same time. And our lives were just parallel. It was just crazy. But the Lord, I know, had us walking together. But we talk about often, it was like we're walking around in a dark room, like you're in a room. The lights are all off. Right. And you just keep stubbing your toe on stuff. But you're like, what is that? And
You're
then all
right.
of a sudden the lights come on, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that's a couch right there. Or, oh,
Right.
And so then you start discovering in this whole recovering phase is where you start discovering, oh, I'm codependent.
Right.
Oh, I'm not secure. I'm insecure.
Exactly.
Oh, I thought that this is what the recovery phase is for. So that again, when you're ready to start rebuilding, you got that sure foundation. And
Right.
when somebody comes and says in the grocery store, hey, where's Joe at? And you're like, I don't know where Joe is because we're not together. And you can go on with a surety,
Life.
with peace, right? And you're not rocked and you put all the groceries back and run out the store because
you're like, I don't know where Joe is.
Just ask me where he is. Right?
Or your other extreme reaction. I don't know where that is.
Right. I can't believe you just asked.
You just go
so
on.
Then you have that visceral response.
You have that, yeah.
Right? And any one of those is a place of unhealing. Exactly. And so I also teach my clients how to know that you're healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's important for you to be able to mark the places that you're like, oh man, that would have caused me to, cuss something, right?
Yeah, right.
Or wow, I had this overwhelming peace when that happened. Whoa, okay.
I feel good. I'm there.
I felt pretty good about that, or I wasn't jerked back to a memory. But it also comes in, right? Staying away. I think I did a video on this. What are you listening to, right?
Yeah.
Are you listening and watching old movies, songs? There's a period of time that you've got to cut all people, even.
Just let it go. You
got to cut it off.
This
so
is that recovery period. Really.
You don't see.
You had the surgery. He's been removed. Right?
And
now you got to let your body, your psyche heal, right?
No. And in the recovery room, there are no visitors.
That's a good one. Yes, there are no visitors.
There's no visitors.
They don't let you see people till you regain consciousness and are not susceptible to infection.
No. Hello. There's a time that you have got to, it is you. And then when it's time to invite, right? If you can do the songs or you can do music or I remember, I had to stop listening to certain songs because it was like, oh man, this is keeping me in this mental place and I don't want to be here. So it was hard, but I made a decision once again, because that's really what it's about when we take accountability for ourselves, that I wasn't going to listen to those songs anymore. I wasn't going to watch the same movies, maybe that,
I hear
so
that.
and it's that kind of granular, know what I'm saying? Like, these are like some of the basic decisions you have to make as you recover.
Absolutely.
The simplest to get through the day.
I did that too. No love songs. I moved to classical and gospel, like no lyrics for a long time.
Yes.
And how many of you have this was our favorite artist. Like, even though I loved this artist before I ever met him,
but then all of a sudden
a thing he was associated with. Like I could not listen to certain people at all for any reason. It just, and then later, you know what? And ladies, I'm here to tell you, it passes.
It does.
It passes. After a time, I could actually work out to that music again and remember and all those. So it comes back. But in the beginning, like she said, when you're in that recovery room, when I was in that phase, I just couldn't do it.
You have got to stay. It's you, and even parts of town. There were parts of town that I mean, if I didn't have any business there, I'm not even going to this part of town.
Yep.
I mean, it was to that, because it was all about me protecting my healing. It was about me protecting me at this point. And I learned how to start choosing me. And it was one decision at a time.
Yep.
One decision at a time.
Choosing me, one decision at a time. One decision at a time.
One decision at a time.
You know, Coach V, we are like at the top of that. I could keep talking to you forever. I will bring you back because this is so rich.
Awesome.
We like really got into it. I mean, I feel like that recovery thing, we'd like spent some time on that. I know some women will be healed listening to this this replay and this actual podcast that we are doing today.
Awesome.
So I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you at the end. These are fun questions just to wrap up. Listen, you know how you know you're old because you're you have to have the print so big. It's just terrible. All right. Anyway. All right. So rapid fire. What is bringing you joy right now?
What is bringing me joy right now? Gosh, seeing my book come to fruition. That is, yes. Yeah. Seeing it come to life. The graphics.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that. Manifestation of a vision, which is great.
Yes.
All right. I always talk about femininity. So what is a fiercely feminine diva decision you made recently that you're like, yeah, I was feeling myself, my femininity, I was there?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a good question. And you talk about these are rapid fire. These are pretty.
I'll give you a minute or so.
A decision I had to make. You know what? I will say investing in myself as a coach.
Okay, awesome.
Investing in myself as a coach was a boss move. Like I need to do it. And let me tell you something, it's been life-changing.
Awesome. Great. All right. What was the last desperate decision? You know, I always say we have fiercely feminine decisions and then we got desperate divorce decisions that we made. So what was your last desperate decision?
Yeah. Ooh, that's good too. You know what? I will say it's something around my current husband. And I am learning in this marriage to letting go of, and I'm not a perfectionist, but I like things right. But I don't always get to make decisions about that. And so letting it be okay for what it is, and it's okay. Even though it brings up some desperation that I see the right answer, but to take my hands off, I will say that.
That's awesome. And you just gave me your next topic. I'm going to bring you back to talk about being married the second time around. That would be great. I think some women will definitely be healed by that too.
Oh, I would love to.
And my last question is, what was the last thing you indulged yourself with for the pure pleasure of it?
Some Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Yes.
I'm an ice cream queen. I could eat it in fall, winter, spring. But man, let me just describe it. I put some nuts and some pineapple and that's good. Haagen-Dazs specifically, vanilla.
I am a Haagen-Dazs girl too. So I feel you. I think I finished up my last pint last week. But I am not a year round. It's very cyclical. And and usually in the warmer months, in the winter, I just get too cold and then I have to sit under a blanket and eat it. And it's just, I typically don't, but doesn't mean I don't always. Every once in a while I will. And I'll be like, this ought to be, you're eating it in the wintertime and you're freaking freezing behind it. So yeah.
I just nestle in a blanket while I eat mine.
Oh my goodness. Well, it has been such a pleasure to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
We definitely have to have you back. Would love to have you here talking about, I love the angle. And I always say I'm a recovering dating coach. So anyway, I'm just kidding. But as a former dating coach, I would love to kind of bring our two kind of, and you're already remarried, like kind of bring that together. And I think that would be a next great topic for us. We could think about that and brainstorm and come back and have you back again.
And can I just say, thank you for inviting me on your platform. I am so grateful and so glad to have met you. Like, I just see great things. So thank you so much for having me. And I wish your ladies well in their process and their journeys as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. And we will see you around the super highway. Have a great evening and have a good night.
Into myself. What a wonderful